Welcome to The Human Edge. This week's guest is Mucktaru Kargbo, or MK for short. It was such a fantastic conversation, this one, and it could have gone on for double the length of time. Maybe we'll have to get him back on for part two later in the year or next year. We covered so much ground today, from MK's career as a barber, how he began, how he ended up teaching or performing, as he says, performing hairstyling in Japan. Amazing story. We talked about what it is to be curious, the nature of curiosity, how we can all be more curious about ourselves and other people. We talked about service, customer service, how the lost art almost of service and of customer service. We talked quite philosophically about the nature of conversation and how, for men especially, it's really tough for a lot of men to be able to get vulnerable, to talk to other people about their feelings. It was a really fantastic conversation. I loved it. I hope you will too. And if you do, please share, please like on social media, and please also subscribe. It will be massively helpful for us. Thank you. Is it my perception that, so you're equally comfortable cutting my hair, cutting a black person's hair? I feel that's unusual in the barbering world. Is that right, or is that just my perception?
Yeah, no, right across the board, that is unusual.
Yeah.
There's not many people that work in different environments. There's not many people that socialize among different circles.
Yeah.
Usually, white people will socialize in their own circles, Turkish in their own circles, Somalians in their own circles, and everyone's in their own little bubble. And I think when you're in London, man, I don't think you can afford to be that way.
Yeah.
You've got to be a little bit diverse with things. So
no, I think you're right. But still, even in London, I'm thinking about my own experience going to have a haircut. It's not, barbershops aren't that multicultural.
No, they're not. So we try to make them that way by not giving anything any stigma. Because I realised growing up in London that anything that I do, being a black man evidently, is going to have its so-called black connotations to it in terms of how it looks or how we might conduct our service or how we might deal with things. And I always choose to make sure I'm not anything like any stereotype that I know of. I try to stay as far away from the stereotype as possible.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that there's a different kind of skill set or different knowledge base that you'll need for, cutting my hair as opposed to cutting a black person's hair. So is that something you needed to kind of go out and learn?
Yeah, I mean, I studied at London College of Fashion, and you needed to have that. I mean, me primarily coming from an Afro-Caribbean background and having that as an immediate resource to work on. It was only when I went to college, then I was exposed to another lifestyle, a whole new concept of hairdressing and people, etc. I mean, when I was going to college, even top models like Alec Wick was at that same college at the same time I was there. Yeah. So not knowing she was going to be one of these world-known models, but that it was very diverse in the amount of people that were there from all walks of life, different parts of the world as well. But yeah, the difference is just really loads. I can't even say I could pinpoint it, but I'll give you an example. Like in European hair, it doesn't matter which one it is, you've got only generally around 12 to 16 different hair types. Yeah? But in Afro hair, you've got 32 to 36.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So over the time period, I've had to master the whole 36 and then go into the 12 to 16 as well. Yeah. And then combine all of the knowledge that I've got from that side to this side. And the crossover has made me better for both hair types, to be fair.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I can imagine once you've developed the skills and the knowledge to be able to cut anyone's hair, there's still like a marketing issue. So, like we were saying before, you've got barbershops where it's only white customers or only black customers.
Yeah.
So how have you kind of broken through that so that anybody can come? Anybody feels comfortable coming into your...
Well,
your
I think first and foremost, they need to see themselves somewhere. So if they don't see themselves through your window, they need to see themselves on your wall or on your website. So that's the only way that they know that they're welcome, is visually, you know? And people will believe their eyes first and their ears second.
Yes.
That's just the way it is.
That is the way it is.
As much as we would like to think different. So yeah, we've always just tried to make sure that everyone can see themselves. So it was important for us to be in amongst different cultures. So I didn't mind if I would be on the high street and I saw someone and I thought they were a good looking guy. I'd approach them, give them my card, and I say, I really like your look. And I'd like to have the opportunity to enhance it. And if there's anything that you would like to enhance yourselves, then bring your clothes, and we'll do a photo shoot. It's all for free.
Right.
And then I'll give them my card, and then I say, check out our Instagram, or check out my Facebook, or check out my profile. And if you want to take part, then we're there. And I'd say a good 8 times out of 10, they would...
well, I mean, why wouldn't you?
That's
a great offer.
They would get involved. But some people are not used to being approached on the street, especially someone generally not from their culture and want to engage in conversation. Regardless of what conversation it might be. It's usually a sales tip, like, buy this from me, or do you know what I mean? So people are always a bit taken back by that.
But that also says something about you, that you had the confidence, maybe even the courage to approach somebody that doesn't look like you in the street and say, I want to work with you.
I think it's more of a need than a courage. I think when you're working with the general public anyway, you have to have a certain amount of courage in order to convey who you are and the fact that you're good at what you do, and these are the reasons why they should come to you, or these are the reasons why they should sit in your chair. So at some point you had to convey something, and I think I'm just using those same skills and just coming across. But then I also know that there's a stereotype as well. And then there's me being black, there's me having dreadlocks. So even though I might have dreadlocks, I might be black, I still make sure that my appearance is as neat as possible if I'm going out there. If I wasn't looking on point, I wouldn't approach anyone.
So you have to, it's about putting on almost like a persona.
I want to at least look, I want to be on a day that I approach someone to be at least looking fashionable.
Because if what you're asking is, I want to work with you, come and let's talk about your hair, let's talk about your look, you need to look the part.
Right? I would want to look somewhat, trendy to a degree, at least.
Just kind of like a segue to Japan, which is because you've taught hair styling, barbering in Japan. And Japan is about as like homogenous a society as there is in the world. It's, foreigners, I think, and so I believe, there's still a kind of a divide between kind of Japanese and gaijin, I think the Japanese call foreigners. So I'm imagining a black person coming into kind of Japan to talk about hair. There's a real what's the word I'm looking for? It's a double take moment. I got there in the end. So tell me how that came about, first of all, and then what the experience was like of you kind of being in Japan, what it took for you to kind of to be able to speak confidently, courageously, freely about what you do, and then the reception that you got from the people there.
Well, I know I think it all kind of derived just from being around my mates and friends and going about town, and there's a lot of skills that you use growing up that in today's society they don't necessarily get. So in terms of growing up, and I'm going this far back because it's so relevant and poignant to today. So I would go out, I'd see a lady, and I'd want to approach her. And I would then walk over and I'd say hi, da, 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 da. and then she'd be like, no, hand in your face, and then like move on to the next. And this would be whether you were on the road, in a club, at a bar, in a restaurant, anywhere you go, you're more or less thinking that it could be a no, but never mind, we'll move on to the next. So having rejection was just something that you're just used to, especially you having to have thick skin and take it when someone says it directly to your face, and sometimes it might not even be courteous. So to then have to do something in your career where you have to put yourself forward as an individual and to say, you know what, I am somebody, I have these skills, use me. So as you keep getting rejected, you now start to think about the things that has been said to you. So you now circumvent certain things that they could say, and you then either change your appearance or you change your approach or your tone or you use a different wording in order to approach that particular lady in order to gear towards a yes. And it might be the smile, it might be the eye contact before you get there. All of these things you start realizing are really important. So the reason why I'm saying this is because the things that got me to Japan were the fact that I had to preempt what somebody needed before I would go and say what I wanted.
Got it.
So there was a particular company called Andis, it was a clipper company, and I could see that they were trying to get their name around town and get their name and expand their brand from the States to the UK. So I literally approached them and just said, I just need 5 minutes of your time to tell you why you need me. And if at that point you don't need me, then that's fine. You would have had a lunch on me. You can go about your daily life and I can go about mine. But prior to that, I was chasing them for a year, constantly, every week, until I had to corner them at a show in Manchester and then say to him, I've booked a table across the road at a hotel, booked that table, and I said to him, look, if you've not had lunch, you've got an opportunity to have a free lunch, listen to why you need me, and if you don't need me, you would have had a lunch, you can get back on with your show, I'll go about my life, you never have to hear from me again.
I just want to pause there, because that says something about your mentality. So you were chasing him every week for a year. Not hearing back or whatever the response was, but you kept going. Why was it that you kept going instead of, as 99% of most people would, like, okay, I'm not getting anywhere, I'm giving up?
Not because I could see what they were trying to do, but I just didn't know how to do it. So if I saw them doing something that was on the level of what I was anticipating to do with them, then I'd be like, well, they don't need me because they're already doing it. But they weren't doing it, and they had a great product, and no one knew it, and the way that they were exposing this product was terrible. So I literally ended up. That's the reason why I didn't really give up. It was just because I could.
It wasn't about you. It was about them, and not.
It was about the opportunity, and the fact that I knew that I could fill that opportunity and fill it well. So I thought, well, I can still carry on with my life. A 5-minute call for him to say no, unless he says a definitive no, do not phone my phone ever again. Get off my line, you annoying little whatever. Then fair enough. But it wasn't that. It was almost like a brush off. I'm busy. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm doing it. And I was just like, okay, there's excuses and excuses. But never mind. I'll run with it. You know? And then that's when I started to think about, well, where will he be that he can't go away, that he can't get away?
Okay, you wanted to corner him somewhere.
Yes, and that was at a show, a trade show, where he has to be there all day. So even if he refused the lunch, I would have just been around in between people, having a conversation with him until I got what I wanted. So,
And is that how the Japanese opportunity came about?
That's how the Japanese opportunity came about. That's not a direct cause of it. So what happened with them, I became their UK ambassador. And I became their lead ambassador and educator. So I ran the education courses, and then I ran all of their advertising campaigns at trade shows, exhibitions, and I also did 2 educational DVDs for them at the time, which we sold just over 2,000 copies of. And me being at all the trade shows, I was at all the trade shows in the UK, and then the trade shows led from the UK to Spain, and from the UK to France, and from the UK to Italy, and I was now doing all these 3 shows. And then you've got people from all over the world coming to these shows, and then they're seeing my work, and then someone's saying, oh, I want to see, we want this sort of guy, we want this sort of work. Look at the crowd he's bringing down, look at the sort of attention he's demanding and attention he's getting from the work he's doing. We want that where we are. So that was how that came about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have any concerns or insecurities about going to a place like Japan, with everything I've said about it before?
No, I was more excited. I was probably more nervous about the language barrier. But when they said they had an interpreter for me, I wasn't that fast.
Yeah. And what was so when you got there and you were doing your thing there, what was the reception like?
It was amazing. I felt like I was, I don't know, I could only assume, I felt this must be what a pop star or a movie star must feel like.
Wow.
Yeah, the reception was that overwhelming.
Yeah.
I'm talking, from the moment I got there, I was waited on hand and foot. If I said I needed anything, someone was always asking me for something every sort of like half an hour, and then someone would just run off and go and get it and bring it back. Didn't matter what I asked for. I cheekily asked for Kargbo at one time, and it took about 5 people to understand what I was talking about. But someone came back with a curry something. Okay. I couldn't believe it. But they really made me look the part. I didn't even know. I was on, I don't know if you know the street called Ginza.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's the most expensive real estate in the world.
This is Tokyo.
Yeah. So I was performing in a building. I can't remember the name of this building, but it was on the Ginza Strip.
Yeah, and I just, again, pausing the word performing there. So that's interesting in itself. It's a performance.
Yeah, I say that. Innately, I say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was an audience there, and this was for media. So there was a few TV people, magazines, etc. So this was a media skit that I was doing, and it happened to be at the building of, I don't know if you've seen any of these TV programs late night. You know when you got the sales programs on telly and they buy this, buy this, buy this.
Well, like QVC.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there was a particular one where they if you're losing hair, they sprinkle this thing, and then all of a sudden you've just got this hair.
Like
it's called
nanofibers.
Million hair. Like fibers. Well, the guy that invented that, I was in his building.
Right.
So this was before that was just coming about. So the inventor of that, I was in his building. I didn't realize it until like halfway through who he was. But yeah, obviously him having a building on the Ginza lets you know the levels that this man was at. And it was only afterwards, which I didn't know and they didn't tell me, but as I was doing my show, my event in terms of the haircuts I was doing and demonstrating, they had put me on the side of the building on probably about a 5 meter high, maybe. It was ridiculous. Yeah. So I would say it was at least 2 to 3 stories.
Yeah.
The screen. Yeah, that they were showing the street.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've just come out on the balcony, seen the strip, and not knowing that there was a screen above me showing everything that I was doing in there. Yeah. No one had told me.
Had you known before you did it, would you have been nervous? Would you have been
No, I would have just made sure someone went out there to film the damn thing. Yeah.
So it was a missed marketing opportunity.
Yeah, like I've never have seen that before.
Yeah.
So I'll find a way of making that happen again. But yeah, that was amazing just to know that.
When you're cutting hair for the general public, are you performing as well?
Yeah, always.
Always.
Yeah. Because I think anyone that is seeing, especially someone that's seeing you for the first time, I think it's an opportunity for you to show off. I think it's an opportunity to show off what you know, how you've come to know it, and to show off what you're going to do with their hair and why. And I think for those that think that just showing with your hands in front of the mirror is enough, you're missing a trick. Yeah, I don't think it's enough. And sometimes I don't even think it's enough time within the one haircut to actually show off who you are fully. You probably need 2 to 3 haircuts to let a client understand who you are, what you're about, where you've come from, and how good you are as a stylist. Otherwise, you're just really bombarding them with conversation about their hair too much, to the point where it could be a little bit overwhelming, when really the most important person in that time is the person in that chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you put it like that, and I get it. When you cut my hair, what I came away with, so I came away feeling like $1 million, first of all, but it's about service, and I'm really interested in that concept of service, because most high street barbers, you're in there for 20 minutes, you have a chat, and you're out again, and you might come out with a nice cut, but that's all it is.
You're lucky you got the chat.
You're lucky you got the chat, absolutely. Yeah. But with you, it's different. So it's a kind of a different approach where, yes, you're showing off what you're doing, but it's about the customer. It's about the person in the chair, ensuring they have the best possible time. They're educated, in a way that maybe they haven't been before about their own hair. Have you always thought about it in those terms?
No, I've just thought about it as a relationship, that it's always got to be a give and take. But I always believe that when someone sits in your chair, I just think if you're just looking at it as just the money, I think you've missed the biggest trick. That's my thing. Because this person's come from a walk of life that you have no understanding of. And I always look at it as, I've got the most fortunate opportunity to be in front of a customer for anything of 30 to 45 minutes, sometimes an hour. There's many businesses in the world that would kill to have that level of time with an individual customer.
Yeah, that's right.
In terms of the amount of information they'd want to find and get out of them.
Yeah.
Being data is king these days.
Yeah, that's right. So this is this is kind of a sales. What am I trying to say? This is for anybody who's in a kind of a selling.
Anyone that's in any form of customer service.
That's customer
business.
service. That's right.
Customer,
This is absolute kind of gold that you're coming out with here.
Yeah, it's the information that you can gain, and it's not to say that you want to gather it and then sell it to someone else, which is what a lot of other companies do. They gather data and they sell it to someone else. Yeah. But that's only because the other person that's selling it, they know the real value of it. They might not even know the value of the data, but they know it has some value. So they'll sell it at the value they perceive it to be. You know what I mean?
That's
then
right.
the person who's buying it has a even perceived higher value of that.
Yes.
That's why they're buying it, and they know what they're going to do with that information.
That's right.
And turn it to something that's going to help them. And I think the information that we receive from clients, you can also do the same thing, whether you wish to help them, help the business, or just help the environment that they're in, or that everyone's in, because everyone's sharing this space. You come sit in my chair, there might be something that you compliment inside the building, you look around, you might like something. That's for me to note. Yeah. There could be a conversation that you have with someone else when they come in, and it was great, and then you ended up shaking hands. We've got to link up, and it'd be like, well, how did that unity come about? Was it the introduction? Was it the time of the introduction? Was it the fact that I involved them in the conversation? You could choose to look into it as deeply as you like, but the main thing is it good for the business? Is it good for the environment? Is it good for the individual? And if it is, then it's like you want to tap into figuring out how that happened. You know what I mean?
Yes.
In order for it to happen again.
In order for it to happen again.
Yeah, otherwise, you can't emulate luck, can you?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's really smart. Was that something you kind of learned along the way, or did you have good teachers, good mentors?
You know what? There was a guy that I used to work for when I started out, when I was just trying to find like a way of kind of, how can I put it, professionalizing myself. I knew that I needed something. But I kept darting around barbershop after barbershop. And everyone was a bit slapdash and not taking it seriously and didn't seem to have any direction in where they were going or what they were doing inside the business. It was just like cut the hair and everyone's just sitting back, and they might go to the shop, get a drink, come back, and just chatting rubbish all day, whether it's football or some car this or... I'm like, I can't deal with this. Yeah. You know, and some people, when I started out, this is like, you're talking like late 80s, early 90s. So all of that then, it was people just getting betting shop, people were smoking weed, people were having alcohol on the stations. I mean, it's pretty much what we used to see on the TV, to be honest. And people used to smoke when they were playing pool. There was a beer on the side. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It was like, it was very relaxed. Those are the days of smoking anywhere, whether you was on a plane or on a train. It didn't matter where you were, you could smoke and drink. So that style of that trade being very relaxed and social was too relaxed and social for me. I didn't know what I was searching for. But I knew it wasn't that. Yeah. So this particular guy, Audie Cummings, his name is, he was suit, shirt and tie, waistcoat, appointments. No one was doing appointments, not in 1993. And he kind of, how can I put it? He molded me to question. So in the way that he molded me to question, he taught me how to question. And then based on what he was doing with me, I then kind of, how can I put it? I kind of drafted it into a way where I understood or overstood what he was doing. So I had to put it in a formula so that I could continue doing it to myself without him. So it was for me to understand how he was teaching me. And once I understood how he was teaching me, I was like, now I can develop and teach myself now and move forward. And that was where the mindset came from. But not to mention the fact that he always felt that the easiest way of letting someone learn was just throwing them in. But
learning through experience.
Yeah, but I didn't mind that because things that I've wanted to do, I always did it. I didn't wait. I always thought it was always better to say I'm sorry than to ask permission. Yeah. That's just how I've been. Yeah. Where it came from, I don't know, but from a youngster, if I wanted to swim, I didn't know how to swim. I just watched them swimming on TV. I saw their hands doing that and their legs doing that. I just jumped in and just did the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. Although I probably had the lifeguard on edge, just because all you could see was this splash just moving across the swimming pool. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But that was me. Roller skating straight in, ice skating straight in. Didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. I just see what I saw on the TV, and I'd try and emulate it and figure out as I go along.
That's quite fearless. No, I don't think many people are wired in that way.
Well, I think that's the youngsters. I grew up with the, you getting on your bike, doing jumps, and I don't know if you're familiar with Ali Pali.
Yes.
Yeah, I've done Ali Pali Hill on roller skates, down.
Okay.
Yeah, as a youngster. Absolutely insane. Yeah. I would never do that in a million years. If someone tried to pay me $500,000 just to do that, I wouldn't do it. Yeah, because I don't know what I was going through then, but I think adrenaline, was like order of the day. Yeah. Yeah, and you get a cut.
Mortality now.
Yeah, you get a cut. My mum or dad would just fling iodine on it. Yeah. Youngsters don't know what iodine on it. They would probably get done for cruelty if you use that now.
Yeah, that stings.
Yeah, it stings their hell, man. Yeah, it's almost like those films we used to see Commando and Rambo and they're cut and they're just getting the alcohol and they're just pouring it on. It was like that. Yeah, it was almost as bad as that.
But there's the fearlessness that you had then, you still have it, but in a different way. In the same way that, you went to Japan and many people would have been really intimidated by the opportunity. You kind of embraced it, and I asked you, had you known that you were live on the side of on a TV station, you would have embraced it even further. Yeah. So,
but I was prepared for that. I was prepared for that indirectly because the first show that I was doing was Afro Hair and Beauty at Alexandra Palace, and I remember this was 1996. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so 1996, I did a show there. And the funny thing is, no, it was 1997. The reason why I say that is because I remember in 96, I didn't win for 95, I didn't win 96, and I didn't win 97. But what I did in 97 was I decided to bring a lot of my mates. Mm-hmm. They wore T-shirts, I had a big crew. and I did a bit more showing off.
Yeah.
But I probably did more showing off than I did in the execution of the cut. So it was more of a showmanship.
Too much performance.
Yeah, too much performance, not enough execution.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, someone saw me and wanted me to do a show in Germany. So I, my first show was on a budget because they literally drove me from London all the way to Stuttgart, and I did the show.
Yeah.
And I remember being so tired that there was a glass. They offered me a drink when I got there. You would have thought it would have been bigger, but anyway, they offered me I think it was might have been like a wine or champagne or something like that, but it was in one of those flutes anyway, so it must have been. No, wine glass. Anyway, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because when I woke up, I was on the bed and I woke up looking at the wine glass. Yeah? On the bed. So like I'm there and I'm sleeping and it's there, like in my face. Yeah. I'm thinking, I've never been that tired for me not to move the whole night, and I've woken up and seen and it's nothing spilt, nothing. Like, I remember that to this day because I just think I don't know to be that tired. But that's what makes me remember that journey so much. But then when I did it, I had a standing ovation in Germany, and that was like the catalyst to sort of like give the confidence to say, you know what, you are good, like carry on doing this, carry on like cutting, and I used to just cut for the fun of it and wanted to just get better. Yeah. And that was the thing that made my name, was my level of artwork that I put into hair. It was all designs. So my forte, or my thing that I'm known for best, is landscapes, portraits, design work, be it 3D, 2D, color. That's me.
So landscapes and portraits, I kind of understand that from a photography or an art perspective. What do you mean in terms of hair cutting, hairstyling?
Literally that. So I'll give the simplest format. There's pop art, familiar with that? Andy Warhol, that's kind of the most famous pop art designer. So he would do a lot of pop art of famous people and doing all these abstract colors, but that's kind of like just two-tone. It's how can you put it? It's a negative. It's called negative design imagery, or negative image. So it almost looks like a negative in a camera, where you just only can make out light and dark. That's it. So that's what I do in hair. So I'd remove the hair to make the image.
Remove the hair to make the image, not literally remove the hair.
So literally remove the hair, as in to cut the hair out, and that makes the image. So there's two different ways of doing it. So there's positive and negative. Yeah. So negative is when you remove the hair to make the image. Positive is when you actually create a line to make the image. So it's still removing the hair, but the hair, there's less hair being removed. So it's when there's the majority of the hair being removed. Yeah. So so even just to do, if I was going to do your face in a negative way, I'd focus on your hair, and the hair on the person's head would be the hair of your beard and the hair of your hair. So in order to make your face and your features, it would be the skin of that particular of the back of the head. Yeah. And then if I was doing it the other way around, I'd have to use the lines around it, and there'd have to be a lot more detail and a lot of shading in order to create that face, so we could see the wrinkle in your smile or the curve of your, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's more features showing when you're doing positive design imagery with clippers. Yeah.
So I love talking about the creative process, because it's, for somebody that doesn't kind of paint, doesn't write, doesn't creative in a different way. So when I'm talking to kind of really, really creative people, I'm fascinated by the process of creation. So when you're thinking about creating something for the first time, where do you get your inspiration from? How do the ideas come to you?
Logic. Literally just logic. Yeah, so the logic is when we see something, in order for us to decide whether we like it or not, it has to tell us a story. And in order to tell us a story, we either look from left to right or we look up, down. So if it's a person, an individual, we look up, we look down, and then we decide whether we like them or not. Like, oh yeah, like the hair, like the clothes, like the thing. Oh, don't like them shoes. Oh no, she should have creamed her ankles. Not really feeling that today. It's that sort of thing. And the same thing for a lady. She'll do the same thing. She'll decide whether she likes something and looks the person up and down. When we're looking at a car, we will look from the front of the car to the back of the car. So there's a beginning, middle, and an end in order for someone to accomplish something and decide whether they like it. And it needs to make sense to them.
And we're doing that in a split second.
Yes, in a split second. So when I'm doing design imagery or when I'm doing any form of design, I already see that the thing that I'm working on is the head. So that's the first thing they see. So that's the beginning. So the middle now has to be the story of what I'm telling in this haircut. So the haircut is short back and sides. The head shape is this. It might be flatter at the back. It might be more rounder at the back. Some people have a big occipital bone. Some people have a flat occipital bone. So depending on what I'm seeing, I still have to make sure that this design or element that I'm doing has to follow a story. And the story has to be a beginning, middle, and the end. And the beginning of the end is the haircut, whether they've got a sideburn, or whether they've got, whether we're taking off the sides, whether there's a point here, whether their head drops to the back, is it high, is it low, how high is the haircut, how much have I got to play with on the sides in terms of whether it's a fade or a graduation. And all of that is a story in itself, before I even add anything to it. So when I add something to it now, I need to complement this story. So I understand that there's a head shape, there's a movement to this head, there's a movement to the hair texture, or the way that the hair flows, depending on what type of person I'm doing it on, whether it may be mixed race, maybe with afro hair, whatever. However the hair curl is styled, or whether it's straight, there's a movement. And if I had to describe that movement, what am I seeing? So the way it moves, the way that the hairstyle is, the head shape, all of that is a story to me. And then I fit my design in that story, so I don't upset it. I fit the story. Almost like how you will, as an adult, you realize that when you enter a party or a gathering, you sort of have to sit there first of all, hold your drink, you smile, and you just sit there and you just wait, because you're trying to figure out what the story is. You're trying to figure out what's going on, who's who, and you shut your mouth for long enough, you understand the story, you understand what they're talking about, you see what's going on, there's a bit of banter, you have to wait for the banter a little while to understand the climate of the banter, and now you know how to interject.
Okay.
You see what I mean? And that's the same way that I do when I see a haircut.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's the best way of explaining it to a layman, anyway. Do you know what I mean?
So I'm imagining there's a difference. So if you're cutting in your salon, it's as you said before, 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. So you have a limited time window to do that.
Yeah.
When you're creating art, theoretically you have much longer, as long as you like. So how do you? I'm imagining that you look up and down, you see the story, but then you want to create something from that point. So do you sketch? Do you storyboard? How do you do all of that?
It depends who it's for. If it's for a show, I would generally do like a quick sketch storyboard of what I want to get across, but I don't go too detailed. And the reason why is because I like the mistakes. If there is a mistake, I don't mind it happening on stage. I literally don't.
Which is really interesting in itself, because most people, they want perfection.
Yeah.
Which for me, it's an illusion.
But life isn't like that.
Life isn't like
so
that.
So I'd rather the accident happen live on stage, because now it allows me to show them what I intended to do, but now what I'm going to do as a result of it not working out. And then there's another level of respect that comes along there as well, because they're like, so you was going to do that and it didn't work, and now it doesn't look like that, so what are you going to do? But whatever I do is going to end up fantastic, because I remember beginning, middle, and an end. So as long as this thing ends and it fits the storyline, it will look fantastic.
So there's a lot of confidence that comes with the ability to be kind of present when you're making a mistake and to work around
that. That is the key word, present.
I'm imagining it wasn't always like that for you. So maybe the first time, or maybe it was, but the first time or the first few times you were on stage performing, a mistake came.
I'd sweat it out.
Yeah.
I'd sweat it out and blag it. Same thing that happened when, you know, there's a girl in the club and you have to go and talk to her, and now she's just dissed you in front of your mates and her mates, and now you have to have this face, that shows that you don't really care, and it's burning you inside.
You're dying
but
inside,
you can't really cuss somebody. You have to learn how to control that emotion, control that, and just sort of like fit in with what's going on, and just, as we say, palm it off. Don't even.
Yeah. But I love this. These are great lessons for anybody, whether it's public speaking, whether it's in a meeting. We all make mistakes, you know. And so we have to learn. So what you're saying, you learn to control your emotions. And then you can get to a point where you built up a little bit of confidence that actually the world isn't going to end if you make a mistake. And then
but you have to decide.
You have to decide, but you can use that mistake to your advantage as you own the mistake, and then use it to your advantage in the way you've done. So it for your audience, you've gone up a level in terms of the respect that they've got for the skill and the craft that you're showing.
Well, the thing is though, at that time when you're speaking to that girl, she's dissed you, and you've got an audience there, you can either choose the fact that you're on that stage of life. You can either choose to moan, cry, whatever, but that wasn't the goal, was it? The goal was to get the girl. The goal was to walk out with her smiling, happy. But if you do the opposite, then there'll be more of an audience that will see what a crap performer you are, and you won't get anything that day. Now you have to find a completely different venue. So, like, how you finish is really important. Because you never know, you may see that person again. And it might be a situation where they were in a position where they couldn't perform based on their environment and the people that they're with. So the only way that they could react was to tell you no, in order to preserve whatever it was that they were preserving with their people. So sometimes we have to remember not to take on board what goes on with other people. We have to still be focused on what you're doing, what your intention was. Because you reacting to that, they're doing it based on them. You can't change them. What they're doing is what they're doing.
You've got no idea what's going on in their head.
So you still have to stay focused. So the question is, what was the goal at that point in time? It didn't work out there and then. It's not over yet. So there's still another opportunity. So move away and create another opportunity, and just don't fuss. And that's where that came from.
That's a great perspective, great attitude.
Like no doesn't mean no. Do you know what I mean? And when we're in that present, like if we choose to ignore what's going on there and then, then we miss the gift.
Which is?
The present.
The present.
You can't open the present, without questions. You need the question to be on the journey for there to be any gift in there. So we could be here and we could just sit here, we could do this again tomorrow. But if we choose to ask the same questions we did yesterday, it's not going to teach us anything different. You know what I mean? So that journey of being able to embrace the present comes from your level of questioning, comes from your level of looking beyond sight. You know what I mean? And it's difficult to do that when you don't keep focus of where you're going. Because now you want to ask as many questions as you can about what you're seeing is, how does this help me to go where I'm going? And you can ask as many questions as you like. If you can see it doesn't, maybe you spent too much time there. You might say to, I'll give myself an hour. If this doesn't feed me anything in an hour, I'm gone. You know what I mean?
I do.
So you have to have a decision of some sort. You know what I mean? And it's still based on that. So even when I'm doing the haircut, or I'm on the stage, or I'm in the salon, there's still that time frame, and that's my time frame to do what I can do and perform and get the best out and get the most out of. But what questions are you going to choose to ask?
That's super interesting. It goes back to what you were saying before with the mentor that you were talking about. He taught you how to ask questions.
Yeah.
And I'm I'm doing this, I'm a curious guy, but I think many people don't have that curiosity. So how do we teach ourselves to ask ourselves and other people better questions?
I think you have to just be more concerned with, you have to be more concerned with yourself, really. I think it's difficult to have an inquisitive nature if you're not even concerned with who you are. You know, how can you be concerned with someone else? You haven't even addressed yourself yet. Because it doesn't matter what we want to do, where we want to go, you still have to take yourself there.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So when you show up, you still have to be able to show up in the best light. But if you don't look at yourself to say, what am I taking? Who am I taking? Why am I taking? How am I taking? When am I taking? You know, and with whom?
Yeah.
You know, all of these things. If you choose not to do that, then what happens is you end up coming into this world of just blame, and blaming everybody else, and then this thing of this hatred sort of thing comes, and all the wrong emotions start to come because you've lost love for self. So, and then that happens where when you start to lose love for self, you've lost trust as well. You don't even trust yourself, so you can't trust anyone else. So it's difficult for you to make bond with other people because you don't know what questions to ask because you really don't trust them because you don't trust yourself.
Yeah. So the first step is get to know yourself.
Yeah, you've got to
look inward. Who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I? Where am I going?
Yeah.
What motivates me? What triggers me? All of these questions. Learn to love yourself more.
Yeah.
Then from that point you can be more curious about other people.
Yeah.
Because you're more confident in yourself.
Definitely. Yeah. But I believe it just stems from you being at home as well. Like it's got to be as simple as that. Like there's a guy called Socrates. He said, true learning comes from observing. So when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you're seeing is your own environment. What are you learning from your own environment? You see what I mean? So if that environment that you're living in doesn't serve you in a way where it can make you happy, just by looking at it, then I'm sorry, you need to get these two hands to work. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, because even if you didn't have a penny, this hand can do something. Yeah. Even if it has to help someone else to get a bit of money, so you can go and buy what you need to go and do what you're doing, but you need to do something because you can't. Tomorrow is evidently that you're going to wake up with the same feeling.
100%.
Yeah. So it's like if this needs to stop, then it needs to stop, and it needs to start right now with me and what I'm doing, and what I'm seeing. So everything's down to your environment. So before you leave your home to go and expose yourself to other people, I would just say, like, do your best to try and fix the feng shui in your own home. In what you're doing, so you can be more efficient, and then you can start. I remember my mum and dad used to say to me, godliness is next to cleanliness, and I'd say that, and then my auntie would say, godliness is next to. You just hear this thing all your life. What does this mean? None of them are even explaining to me what it means anyway. But so I had to come to my own conclusion. And they say godliness is next to cleanliness. And I used to think, okay, so when something's clean, it's tidy, everything's neat. And if it's clean and it's done, I'm thinking, well, it's done. So all that's left to do is create. And what do gods do? Create. So in order to be creative, you need to be tidy, orderly, and organized. Everything's got to be organized, have it its place, clean, tidy, Now there's nothing left to do but create, to add something. Because you're not just going to sit in this perfection and go, it was great. Just sit there. Because soon enough, you won't be.
Yeah.
So it's always perfecting. So I've looked at that saying as I have to be creating. So even if I'm at my lowest of lows, I have to create something. Yeah, something. Yes. And it doesn't mean necessarily you have to create something with your hands. If you might not be gifted with your hands. You might be gifted with your tongue. You might be gifted with your love, the way that you love people, or the way that you show concern and help. Go and do that. Go and find someone that you can actually help and enrich their life and figure out what is done for them.
That's right. And by doing so, you're enriching your own life.
There you go.
That's creativity. So for 20 years, I was a lawyer.
Yeah.
And the story I told myself was I wasn't creative. Okay, I must have been creating in a different way. Now I'm doing this, and I'm kind of doing the work as a coach. I feel kind of more creative. But that's just a story I've told myself. What I believe is that we're all creative. No matter what we do, we're all creative. And it's just it's part of us, you know, kind of, for some people, deeply hidden. For other people, it's right there at the surface. But when we're creating, we're alive.
Yeah.
And it's nourishing us and it's feeding our soul. So and as you say, creativity, you need to create the conditions in order to create. This is what that saying is. You need to be present. You need to kind of put away all the clutter, physical and mental clutter. From that point, that's where you can create from, I think.
Yeah, and I think if ever I'm in doubt or I'm clouded, I have to remember that I'm not a circus act. I'm not a juggler. I do not know how to juggle 5, 7, 10 things at one time. So I go back to my most formative skill, which is hand-eye coordination, and I write down some crap on a Post-it note, and I'll put it there, and I'll put it there, I'll put it there. I might have a drink, and I sit there and I look at it, move that around. Now, get my pen out, maybe add something else, then move it around. It's so much easier to move the thoughts in your mind if they're on the paper and move it around to see whether you're talking crap, thinking crap, you know, doing crap. Do you know what I mean? And it just helps to get things a little bit more in order. So I always say, like, whenever you're lost, it's like when you're frustrated with your keys, you go right back to the door, don't you? And you talk it the whole thing through. I stood there, then I think about, then my wife called me and I went, yeah, babe, da, 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 da. And then I looked over there and I dropped the bag, da, 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 and then you realize, what's the keys doing in my shoe? I took my shoes off, da, 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 da. You was walking up and down, big 20 minutes you've been in the house looking for these keys, but as you just walked it through, there's a little thought that you had that just made you realize, oh, yes, I dropped the keys down whilst I was taking things because the laces was getting on my nerves and I had to put that. Now that's where it is. And it's that in life that these little things that always show us. And I always say, whether you're religious, whatever. I grew up in church. Not so much a churchman now, far from it. But I very much believe in my Creator. Very much believe in God. And the thing that makes me know this, without any unreasonable doubt, and I'll just say this to anyone that might have doubts, is that if I cut myself, just a little cut, you know, not that I do it intentionally, like I'm self-harming, but I happen to have had a cut on my hand. I don't determine and say, you know what, oh God, I've got this hand commercial next week. I'm gonna need you to heal by Tuesday. You think you can do that? I'm not going to talk to my hand and ask it to do that. It's just going to do it. It's just going to scab over, and then the pigmentation is going to come back. And I had no control over this. So I have to remind myself that I don't know any man on this planet that could rebuild my cellular structure exactly as it was whilst I go about my daily life, and repair it back. And I'm not conscious of this. So there's an energy that's able to do that.
Correct,
So as far as I'm concerned, the baddest man I know resides within me. So I have to remember that always when I rise, and I just say thanks. That energy that's doing that, that energy that made me rise, that's the one that I'm respecting. And then there's other times where we have to acknowledge things, because these are things I talk to my children as well. And that is, everyone has already done something, and we've done it, and we've all said, oh, I fucked up, man. I effed up. And then you just stay and you stand up and you go, I knew I shouldn't have done that, man. I knew I should have just gone that way. Or I knew I shouldn't have accepted their offer. I knew I should. And you're like, okay. So right now, in your vex state, you're acknowledging that there is a part of you that knew. Just said it to yourself. I knew. Like, who is this I? And why do you not talk to him regularly? Because this brother seems to know this thing all the while.
Yeah.
Why are you not talking to this brother? Whoever he is, I don't care whether you want to go into anything else, but I don't know a human being that hasn't said that phrase.
Yeah. There's so much wisdom in ourselves that we don't listen to. Right?
Yeah. And the first thing we do in life to have breath is we breathe in. So we know the most important thing is in. You know what I mean? So, and I don't know anyone that's had an idea outside of themselves. Do you?
That's an interesting. A friend of mine, so my wife's a writer, and I think I've said this before in other conversations. So a friend of mine asked me about her, where does the creativity come from? Does it come from outside? Or does it does it come from inside and then into the proverbial pen?
Yeah.
So I don't know the answer. It's a great question.
But usually when someone is speaking something that is not physically here right now, in order to make you understand it, I have to be as descriptive as I possibly can with my words. Even with the words that I'm speaking now, you're forming pictures in your mind.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the word W-O-R-D in your head. I think you're a bit crazy. Yeah, but that's because I painted that picture there for you.
Yes.
But generally, we use the words to cast an image. You see what I mean? So, and then when someone's explaining something, you say, "Oh, I see." I didn't bring anything to you for you to see.
Yes.
So what are you seeing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yes. So we know that the eyes are they're a little bit telling, yeah, and sometimes not tell the truth.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it's you know, and the truth I believe is that's God's truth. You know what I mean? So when you see, yeah, that's God showing you what you see.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one is someone else manipulating what you see. So I don't know what truth this is.
Yeah.
But if we believed everything there, we'd probably sit down and not do anything. Because we've seen the news for the last week and it told us that someone got stabbed and killed and this and that. I'm not going down there, not going Tottenham High Road, not going Brixton, not going there. Now you don't, you know, there's only a few places you go now just because of that. You know, so yeah, it's a lot of...
yeah, but it's coming back to what you were saying before about questioning, being curious.
Yeah.
I think that's... So we're seeing something, but are we questioning it? Are we curious about what we're seeing? Are we thinking about it?
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, so I'm really, really enjoying the conversation. It's two men talking, right? And I think many men are really uncomfortable talking about themselves with others.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm imagining the space that you create. Men, you know, the kind of the archetype of barbershop. Men come in to talk about themselves. Is that your experience of it?
Yeah, but I think that will generally happen when you've allowed someone to know that it is a safe space, and it can be perceived as safe by familiarity in the layout of something. So when we do things, we might have a color scheme, but based on the color scheme of our brand, I then start tweaking things towards the client. So I start finding out where they go, what they do, what they drive, and then these things, I look for the similarity in them.
Yeah.
So, and it's always to do with the regulars, and it's always to do with the ones I like. So, I mean, not to say that I don't like anybody or dislike anyone, but there's people that better the environment.
Sure.
There's always an energy where when someone enters the room, they ignite the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's those energies that change it, and you just look forward to that particular person coming in because you know that they're going to have a story, their life's interesting, they've got a zest about themselves, and it's those stories and those things that I like, and then I change things for that. But more so, I'm more focused on the individual, which is what you're doing, how you do it, and why do you do it, you know, and what do you get from it today, and are you winning, you know, and if you're not winning, hopefully I can make you feel like a winner today. Yes. That would be my goal. Yeah. So I like to know where they're at mentally, spiritually, so that I can service them in that way. because if they're in a space where they're not winning and they're still trying to figure it out, then I know that I need to just leave a gem on them, and that might be towards the end of the haircut, and then I'm just telling them about what I'm doing for them, so that there is at least this space where someone is focusing on them and making sure that they feel right and making sure that they've learned something and feel a bit better about themselves as an individual in terms of how they look. And I might get excited about the cut so that that they can see that I'm excited about the cut and I'm enjoying the haircut and I'm enjoying how it's finished, and the way that I'm like, you know, I might have to invent a story in terms of what's going to happen next. I circumvent their next maneuver, whether it being the fact that someone's going to compliment them, they're going to see, someone's going to buy them a coffee, a girl's going to buy them a coffee, or do you know what I mean? I put a picture in their head that was going to paint something positive if they're in a sad space. I'm not going to be there start preaching if they're not in that space where they want to talk. But I'll get them to a space because they at least know that they need to do this in order to look better, to feel better. So that at least they're game for something. They're game for being positive. They're just not sure how. Do you know what I mean?
It is having been to you, it is incredible how you're right. When you as a man, I'm sure it's the same for women. When you look good, you feel good. But I want to come back to the whole that men talking. Right now, I think there's a bit of a crisis in this country, and maybe beyond, about what it is to be a man, and about, you know, there's growing rates of young men taking their own lives. I don't know if it's a crisis, but maybe it's reached a point that it's never reached before. What is it about being a man today that has men keeping things to themselves, not talking? Comparison. There's a lot of comparison. There's ageism, comparison. I would say, oh, I've reached a certain age, I should have achieved this, I should have accomplished this. There's people that may have this car, have this house, live here, buy these clothes, have this money to buy these things, be able to drink this at the bar, have these girls around them. And as a man, that might not be your thing. It might be your thing to have this type of girl or this type of car, or, you know, you just really want to be a guy that just wants to find a woman, find love, raise a family, and just be that guy that looks after that. You might not have to be anything glamorous on that side. To you, that is glamorous. To have a woman that adores you unequivocally could be your goal. But to say that out loud in a place could be perceived as being a bit of a sissy or a nonce or whatever. Then you maybe change the way that you do things in order to be accepted in your environment. So, but it was that last bit. I think there's a perception among many men that talking about their own feelings is not what men should do. No. And it's weak, right? That's the perception. For me, it's completely the opposite. For me, it's a huge strength personally to be able to talk to my friends, to my wife, to my parents about who I am, about what I'm going through. But for some reason, we don't. Most men have that perception that it's a weakness. But you know what that is, though? It's because there's a saying that says your words will be scorned if you share them with fools. That's interesting. So sometimes you don't even know if you've been raised by a fool. And you're trying to share your words with the person who may be your parent, and they're scorned. They're burnt the moment you open your mouth. Someone tells you to shut up, be quiet, sit down, stop this, stop that. Scorned. So that's learned behavior. Right. You see what I mean? And many men have grown up. And you can grow up like that. And you can grow up enclosed. And you can grow up whereby you try to have a conversation with someone and no one shares any real interest as to why. And that's key.
You know what I mean?
And it's a it's a generational issue, isn't it? Because, you know, for people of my dad's age, maybe your dad's age as well, it wasn't the done thing to talk, to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that way of thinking, that attitude has been passed down in the main.
Yeah.
From father to son.
Well, it's the same thing I was saying earlier in terms of like if you're confused or you're lost, you could still be lost in your emotions. You could still be lost in your feelings, in your mindset, and where you want to go. And I was saying like put the post-it notes, and then you move them around. And it's the same thing you could do with your emotions. If you're feeling angry, you could put what you're angry about. If you're feeling anxious, and just describe what it is you're feeling. When you put it in there, the moment you put it there, the brain now says why. Immediately says why. It needs to have an answer for that. It won't. The body will not accept that. You know, when it's looking at itself. Yeah. Because now God is looking at itself and saying, why am I this? He's not going to just say this is it. But it's when you do not make the reflection.
So the act of taking it from your head and putting it on paper, there's something really powerful.
Or the act of having conversation and it revealing back. This is God talking to God. God made you in his image and the uniqueness, which is you. With a unique gift, which is you. He's made me in an image, which is uniquely me and my gift. So when we speak, and we speak from here, this is God conversing with God's self.
And if you're, you know, for somebody listening to this that doesn't believe in God, that is an atheist, for example, there's still, you can take the spiritual or religious aspect of this and put it to one side, but it's still equally valid, right? So I'm a non-believer, for the sake of example, and I'm talking to somebody else, that I'm still by the act of talking. I'm able to, you're observing what I'm saying, you're hearing what I'm saying, but it's also reflected back to me, so I can hear it for myself.
Yes.
That's what you're saying, I think.
Yeah, but then at the same time, in the conversation of where we're going, there's a journey. If I'm asking you a question, you ask me one back, the elevation of our minds is being raised by the question and the heartfelt conversation. So if no one doesn't bat a good question back to you, you can't bat one back with an answer. Like there's no tennis in the conversation. We can't go nowhere. This is not a good game. You know what I mean? So then they just say, well, I'm not playing. So now they just don't play with anybody. So they stop playing games with conversation. They stop playing games with the heart. They stop playing games with the mind. And they only do what they see.
So if you're a man like that or a woman like that, and what you're saying is you need to find people that you feel comfortable talking to, that will listen to you, that will ask good questions.
Yeah, like you've got to assess who the fools are from not the fools. You see? But what generally allows you to know is the journey. So if you just stick to, taking an interest in an individual and asking them who they are and where they're going, if they cannot talk for more than 5 minutes about it, then believe you me, they're not going anywhere. And they're going to be very harmful and dangerous to you. You see? Because the devil makes work for idle hands. So if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know where you're going, now, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, I believe, that you can harm me. Because you do not value your own time. You don't value your own journey. So how could you possibly value mine? So you could squander mine and peel over mine unconsciously because you do that with your own. And it's not no disrespect to you, but you just haven't found a value in yourself that allows you to understand that right here and now, you could be making a lot out of your life just by having a good conversation with myself, which could lead to something that you might learn that could help you into where you're trying to go. And that's the bottom line. You know what I mean? So, but if people don't have that, that's what I believe has learned. I mean, I've been in barbering and hairdressing since, so good, over 30 years, put it that way. And having all these conversations with men over the years, and you see that there is this common denominator to try and be a particular type of male. But the guys that I see that are quite settled mentally, spiritually, and have this level of love around them and family in a way, and they've learned to control their emotions in a way, are the guys that seem to be quite level-headed and not really fussed about what other people think. Yeah. Not trying to live up to the Joneses, and just they're really about the family, you know? And I think when we become more family-orientated and understanding that is who we're trying to impress. That is who we need to seek the love for.
Yes.
That is who we get the best validation from.
Yeah.
Then most things outside can't hurt us, especially when that is the focus. And the life that you want to create for them is the focus in the way that you and your immediate family enjoy it. It's like, I think every day just becomes so much more enjoyable because you know that what you're doing is for this. It becomes very central, it's quite easy, because you can't please people. You don't know, you haven't spent enough time with them to try to do that. You know, this is why people are spending so much money on data to get information out of them, so they can formulate this, how can I put it, this utopia in that space for that 10 minutes, 20 minutes when you buy something or purchase something. So they figure out all the different things as time goes on in terms of what you like and the smells and the this and the colors and the tastes in order to grab you in and take it and for you to buy it. But then you bought the thing and you've gone there to experience that thing, but nothing's really been enriched beyond that moment, which is why I like the barbershop. Yeah. Because even though we've exchanged something, which is your haircut and my skills to go on your haircut, because we've had the moment to engage spirit to spirit, we've now both got something more than just the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what you can't beat. Because everybody's time is important. If you're spending time with me, I'd want it to be enriched. You know what I mean? I always believe, like, be a benefit to the room. If you walk into a room, benefit the room in some way, or stay home. Yeah. Just stay home until you figure out how you can benefit the room. Be of service. Because even if you're not good at conversation or this and that, just go and help tidy up. Just clean this up, move that. Oh, you finished with this? Yeah. Just be that guy until you figured out something.
Yeah.
You know?
Listen, that's a beautiful place to end the conversation. I want to say thank you. It's been a pleasure. Such a pleasure to talk to you. I feel like we could do this for another hour, but we don't, unfortunately, have the time. Yeah. Maybe you can come back another time and we'll carry on the conversation.
Oh, definitely. I'd love to.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Definitely. Thank you. Appreciate it.